Hello, everybody. I am Kari the Mortician, and happy Saturday night. I had planned to come home earlier from work and get some stuff done and get on and go live, and got totally segued. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go live, and by golly, I got completely sidetracked. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. And so just was sitting and I was like, what was I going to do tonight? I was like, I was going to go live. So hello, here we are. Oh, Trevor in the hospital. No good. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Leo, not a new haircut. I just styled it a little different, I guess. So feedback. I don't know. It's a little straighter, but not straight. So it's a little flippy. Welcome, everyone. Ooh, Ashley's using her That's Naughty koozie. If you guys didn't see the That's Naughty video, was that last week? It's out and talking about the naughty funeral directors. And I know naughty is kind of a light word for what these funeral directors did, but come on, guys. I like to little levity with what we're talking about. How do you tell someone's wife that their husband is dying? Why are you having to tell them that, though, is the question. You're going to have to tell me more of that, Nathan. How was my Minneapolis trip? I had so much fun in Minneapolis. It was kind of crazy, though, because it felt like a ghost town. I don't know if maybe just I haven't been to a big city since COVID really kind of smackdown happened, but because people aren't commuting to town or into the cities for work because they're working from home, it's like ghost town when you're walking around the big city. It was so weird not having like other people around, and restaurants and places being closed and not being able to get food. Like the first night getting in late and wanting to get food because I was starving and couldn't get food anywhere. It's crazy. So definitely quite a trip. Got to see family. Got to go to Nadal's wedding, which was amazing and beautiful and so fun to get to go to. So I'd shared some of those pictures on Instagram and Facebook, and so you'll have to check those out. So let's dive in, because I have, honestly, this last week, you guys have sent me so many questions. Yes, so we're going to dive in. Do I keep count of the embalmings that I do? I do not. I do know people who keep track, like they keep a binder and they number them and their career, and they've done 3,000 or however many they've done. I don't keep track. I literally have no concept of what my number would be at. It's weird to think that it's probably hundreds, into the hundreds or into the, who knows even. It's just crazy to think that many, but I've been in the business for a long time now. So they kind of, they tally up. I don't go up to the Upper Peninsula much. That is the biggest to me. So in Michigan, I love traveling. I love going to new places. I have not traveled enough in Michigan. Michigan is gorgeous. I think most people think Detroit when they think Michigan, but Michigan is gorgeous. And I haven't traveled here enough, so I need to. Ever picked up remains from a prison, correctional facility, or jail? So if someone dies in the prison, they have to go for an autopsy. So they would come from the medical examiner at that point. Can someone with asthma be a successful embalmer? Being around all the chemicals in the prep room. You're going to want to wear a respirator. You're going to want to wear some protective gear. So you're going to have to practice and see for yourself your air consumption and if you're able to breathe okay through those things, because you're going to want to cleanse that air and the chemicals into your system as much as possible. Do human ashes smell bad? No, I don't think there's any smell to them. What's the bug behind me? I don't see a bug. All right. Do you think it's good to get embalmed? It's all personal preference. So my question is, have you ever prepared a body that has passed from rabies? No. Are they contagious if they're prepared differently? I don't know anything about human rabies. I honestly, I'd have to look into it. Ever had a Halloween themed funeral, like next of kin wanted costumes for deceased or those attending? No. We've had clown funerals, stripper funerals, bikers. I'm trying to think of any like garb that people all were kind of wearing the same stuff, and no Halloween themed. I watched a documentary about how we're running out of room to bury. There's a lot of room to bury still. There's so much space to bury. You go double deep, you do mausoleums. There's so much space. So much space. Stripper funeral. Yeah, there was a stripper funeral. What ways you set yourself up to stay organized since the whole pandemic ordeal? What advice would you give your younger self when you were starting out as a funeral director or mortician? Ooh, staying organized. Organized in what capacity? I have my calendar. I make lists. That's kind of my life. And a lot of it's up in my head too, but I think the biggest thing to tell your younger self is to have patience and that you're always learning. It's not like you're going to learn to a certain point and then whoop, you're the best embalmer funeral director ever. Like you are constantly learning. Even when you're 70 years old doing this business, you have a lot to learn because the business is always evolving. Every family is different. Dynamics are different. Pricing, dispositions, everything is changing. Nobody knows it all. Nobody knows a majority even. So tapping into what the younger people can teach you, tapping into the older generation, tapping into different occupations and dynamics and religions and everything helps you grow and grow and grow because you never can know it all. Hello in Texas. How do we deal with a body that died of a dangerous disease? So the CDC has very written out protocols for certain things that just don't happen really very often, like Ebola. They have certain ways that we're supposed to dispose of those people to allow for safety for the people caring for them. So I would go to that playbook and follow those rules. Dennis, nice. You were a pallbearer and you had worried a little bit about it, but awesome that it was a good experience. I don't think that's a bug. It's a tip of her flowers. Okay. I don't know what you guys are talking about with that, but so this was the question on the main screen. So if you go to a funeral home and your loved one is at that funeral home and you make arrangements and you don't want to work with that funeral home, either the pricing, gut feeling, whatever it is, you choose to use a different funeral home. Yes, you can always transfer to another funeral home. You have to pay that initial funeral home for the services that you expected of them or asked of them. So the removal, the embalming, those are the things you're going to pay for. They're kind of jerks if they have, that's terrible to say, but if they have you pay for an arrangement conference because you came and sat down with them and then changed your mind, that's kind of lame. But if you've done things with them, they can charge for those things and you do need to pay them. So either you'll pay them direct or the funeral home that you contract with next will incur those fees with them. So you'll have to have a good discussion with them about that as to how they want to do that. But yes, you can always change to another funeral home if you are not liking the one that you're at. Who do I think will win the Alabama-Tennessee game tonight? I don't even know what sport's playing. Is it football? Like, that's terrible, but I have no idea. We're going to go with Alabama because My kids like that Crazy Like song, Crazy Like Applebee's on a date night. Alabama, is it Alabama Slammer and a something or other? So that's stuck in my head. So we're going to go with Alabama. If you want jewelry to be buried with your loved one, do they really bury with them or do they take it off and keep it? No, they bury it with them. That's terrible. No, they bury it with them. Human composting, what's my thought? I think it's a great alternative. There's so many great alternatives for people who don't want just burial or they want something a little more natural or trendy or new age, whatever you want to call it. There's so many good options. Thank you, Jocelyn. Are funeral directors allowed to pay for or receive money for referrals? Not really. It depends what you're talking. Like they go pay off a hospice nurse. Is that what you mean? Roll Tide. Do you ever see the movie Rachel, Rachel? I have not. I do love Paul Newman though. If it's a military funeral, do they have their own embalmer and people to do the funeral? Well, what do you mean by military funeral? Because that could be a veteran. That could be anybody that's associated with the military. So that's kind of a wide spectrum of a question. And I have work phones tonight for one place. So I've got to kind of pay attention to that as well as the phones are coming through. I'm going to tell you guys, right now, industry-wide, we are seeing a crazy spike in deaths. I've talked to a lot of different people across the country, and we're seeing some peaks. Some places it's more than they ever saw during COVID, and these are not COVID deaths. And so there's been all this discussion as to why is this happening? Like, why are we seeing spikes? And so then you go back to the medical field, and a lot of people didn't seek medical attention during that huge lockdown time. They maybe had symptoms, they were having problems, they couldn't get into the doctor, they couldn't get into the hospital, they couldn't get in for treatment, they delayed treatment, whatever the situation. And now those people are dying, seeing, shorter terms of cancer, the person had cancer before death. It's just a crazy thing right now, but huge spikes. So a lot of tired, a lot of deaths going on across the country. It's just, it's been quite the couple weeks. Is it possible to bury an urn on top of a grave casket? Yes, Susan, go watch my video. I think it was 2 weeks ago, my 2-minute video, and that's what it's about. If a decedent is to have a viewing, but not for 7 to 10 days after death, when are they embalmed? Immediately or closer to viewing? Immediately. We want embalming to happen as soon as possible. Yes, the sooner the better. With COVID, has ordering funeral supplies and caskets been harder to get? We've gone through some spells or some patches where it was hard. One was with one casket company. They couldn't get their wood caskets because their manufacturer was a bit overrun and they wouldn't extend labor hours for their employees. And so what they produced was what they produced. So we were having a really difficult time getting caskets. Things have pretty much planed out with some of that. Definitely we were in PPE struggle mode for several months there. Just like the medical field, we need PPE also. We're handling the people once they die. So we needed the PPE and we were having a very hard time getting it. So we also saw a lot of those problems. If a funeral director refers a family to a realtor to sell a decedent's house, can the funeral director accept cash for doing so? I don't know that there's anything against that. They're not getting a referral for a family for a funeral. They're referring for something else. So I don't know that there's anything against that. Stephanie, that's interesting, is sharing that in Milo, Maine, they had a influx of non-COVID deaths right as lockdown happened. Do you have a go bag that contains tools and instruments that you prefer to use, packed and ready to go? I don't. So trade embalmers and people who travel to do embalming, some use their own stuff and some just use what's at their funeral homes. I don't do enough of it that I worry about bringing all my own stuff. But I know trade embalmers who bring their own fluid and everything with them. So it just depends on how much work you do and what you like and such. Can a loved one have a cremated pet buried with them? It depends on the state and the cemetery. I have 2 questions for your live chat. Do coffins come in half couch and full couch configurations like caskets do? Yes, you can get coffins with like a half lid. It's not as common, but you can get them. Does the funeral business require you to get certain vaccines since you can be exposed to biohazards from the deceased? Before you go to college, before you go to mortuary school, you have to get certain shots and such. Just like any college that you go to, they may require you get certain vaccinations. Hepatitis B is one that for OSHA, you have to offer to every employee that has any exposure to deceased or blood or anything. They can decline it, but they have to be offered it. And so that's something that through OSHA, you have to track through funeral homes. Lori has 6 cremated dogs that she's going to have buried with her. It is now legal in New York for you to bury pets. Yes, you can bury pets in a human cemetery. Sorry, guys, got to do work for a second. So I've recently got into watching your videos. My husband thinks that I and you are morbid. My husband and I both decided we want traditional burial with a viewing if our children want to view us. That is typically how it's done. I have heard how you talk about organ donation impacting embalming. Would one have to request that certain things like head and face not be donated so your family may have a viewing? So they don't do anything to your face except for to like your corneas and such for donation. So you're not going to get your eyeballs donated if it's going to affect the viewability, especially. They do ask if you're going to have a viewing or not to see if they take, well, at least for the organizations, if you do the bones here, they'll try and do just upper arms and then lower extremities. So it just depends on some of those things. And I'm totally multitasking, guys, just so you know. I guess, I don't know if there are particular reasons why you have to take facial, skin, or bones. I'm dead now. What? She's talking about a book. I think that's the book I have right here, actually. Is this? Nope, that's this book. I was thinking, It's Your Funeral. This book is super cool. You guys should check it out. It's kind of like covers a million different things about funerals, but in a little bit lighthearted, humorous way, like dives deep into some things. So this is It's Your Funeral by Kathy Benjamin. So check that book out. Whoop, that was loud. So jump back over to your questions. Did they do viewing before cremation? Yeah, a lot of times. What is something among your industry you wish was legal but isn't? Legal but isn't. I don't even know. That's a good question. Let me think about that, Ashley. or something illegal that you wish wasn't? Yeah, let me think about that because, one thing that pops into mind is people wanting to go into this business and they can't really see or do much when it comes to the person side, the deceased side of it. However, I also am a big believer in privacy of the deceased. So it's kind of that double-edged sword of letting people see things, but yet you shouldn't because it needs privacy. So I feel strongly on both sides. I've been to a funeral of a 2-year-old and she was very bloated. She died of internal bleeding. She was ran over. Is it how she was embalmed? No, she would have been autopsied more than likely. So opened up, but I'm going to guess, maybe didn't even die right away. She might have been on some life-saving measures up at the hospital. Oftentimes, if you're on life-saving measures at the hospital, you're going to look bloated because they're filling you full of fluids, like so many fluids. And that's going to create a poofy, bloated look to the person, which doesn't always go away. So that could possibly be why as well. Do I believe in life after death? Yes. So Paul asks, I use a CPAP every morning. I wake up and start my day. I have strap marks on my face for a couple of hours. My question is, if I were to die in my sleep, would the strap marks remain after death or would the skin relax? It's going to depend how long you have been dead with that on, whether it's going to be permanent or not. It's really the same with, let me think, even the breathing tube. That's if somebody's got a tube in their mouth, it may have been pressed there long enough that it does leave a bit of an indentation. We can try and work and manipulate the skin and tissue. That area, though, may discolor because there's pressure on it. It may turn redder or pinker than the rest of the skin. So it's one of those, what might work on one deceased might not work on the other. So hello, Julie. Welcome. Thanks for catching the live. With the rise in wood, has the price gone up for wooden caskets? Materials just in general are up in pricing across the board, everywhere. Everything you buy, Philip. So definitely casket prices have gone up. Everything has gone up. We've tried to maintain the full overall pricing of funerals, but definitely things have gone up. Why is it so damn expensive? I think there's a possible misnomer that cremation is an affordable way to go. I think more people would choose burial if the cost was reasonable. Tommy Cat, you're correct. If I would love for everything to be like on an even playing field so that you could go in and base your choice off of just what you want, not on cost. But here's the problem. So it's been a slippery slope that an undercutting and trying to get cheap things, cheap ways for people to be able to take care of their dead. We've created this funnel system into cremation that's super cheap, or undercutting or lowballing, or however you want to say it, which forces the burial side to be pricier to offset the lack of income from the cremation side, from a direct cremation. So yes, you're right. They both need to be on an level playing field. Your costs are going to be dependent on all the business side of things, the overhead, the materials, the employees. It is an expensive business to run a funeral home. You have expensive vehicles. You have a lot of staff that is on call 24/7. You're doing expensive procedures. It is an expensive business to run. It's not like a $20 thing to cremate somebody. You're using a lot of resources. You're using a lot of energy and staff and materials and everything. There's a lot that goes on that you don't see happening. A lot of hours that go into things. Like this last week, I spent 9 hours, not an exaggeration, 9 hours on just one family. It's just how it happens sometimes. That's a lot of labor hours of one family. They're paying the same price, though, as a family that I only spent 1 hour with. So you can see how it just, the differences between different situations, you have to kind of have one broad number for that. Jim, so if I wanted you to do my embalming when I die, is it something you do? Me to travel, I would have to find somebody licensed in that state that would allow me to come in to do that. It would be decently costly because of all my expenses would have to be paid out as well. I would have to be able to, on the drop of a hat, leave at that moment. And I can't promise that that's going to be a reality. It is hard for me to be able to go do that. Whether, even if my will is there, the reality of it is not always going to really work out that way. Hey, Susan, welcome to Alive. Why did it take so long with the family? Some families just have a lot of requests. A lot of family members involved means more questions spread out across the family members. Just some families are like that. And it's not that they're an annoying problem family. It's just that sometimes it takes a lot more time to handle the family. Do we decorate the funeral home for Halloween? You know, I've known people who do, and I've known people who don't. I've known people who pass out candy and people who don't. So it depends. People are now afraid of it, or as the beginning of our American history, women played an important role in burial just as much as men did. It's true. I mean, there's been female funeral directors and embalmers around for a very long time. It's just was not as predominant as it is now. More females than men are going into the business now, which is amazing. Thurman Moore, thank you. What about dealing the military? What are you asking about there? More to the question, I guess. Have I ever had pallbearers drop a casket? No, not yet. Knock on wood. This last week, guys, I ordered, so I talked about the fiddlehead casket kit where you put it together and it makes a bookshelf, and then you reformat it and it makes a casket. So I ordered it this last week. I've had some of you sending money to me to help support this crazy endeavor. I've had some PayPal, and you guys have done on some videos. So everything from this month that is given during live videos with your little button, I don't know if your button's there or your button's there, the little money button goes towards buying that casket to do a video to show you guys what that casket is all about. And I don't want the company to cut their income from it. So I've bought it outright with them at their normal pricing and stuff, and having it shipped here from Canada so I can put this thing together. Should be fun. Do caskets come already made, or do the casket companies put them together? It depends. Sometimes if they import them from like China or something, they may have to assemble stateside and then sell to the funeral home. I work in a nursing home in the nursing field, and just had a lady who was talking the night before I came in yesterday. I smelled a weird smell and walked by her room. Thank you, Clayton. Yeah, Trevor, that's the goal, I think, is I'm going to do a live video trying to put this thing together. So we'll see how it works. It could be interesting, me putting that casket together. Oh, 101 years old. I just love old people, especially 101. Can you even, that's an insane high number of years. And I'm also got to tell you guys about this. Have you, and this is not a joke. Have you guys ever seen this? Not a joke. The Men of Mortuary. So it's 2007. I haven't opened. I just ordered this to have a copy. I'll pull out the thing. So I'm going to be interviewing one of these men this week to ask about how this whole thing came about and how it was received, how they were looked at kind of afterwards. Yeah, men of mortuary. So watch for that video coming up here. We're supposed to do that interview on Wednesday, so I'll get that video edited as quick as possible and share it. But really, could be interesting. So that's just something coming up. But do you get to used to the smell of their bodies when they arrive? Everyone at work calls me the Grim Reaper since I smell smells, and people usually pass that day or shortly after. I mean, we definitely smell things, but I guess it doesn't bother me as much not as much. I think that's interesting, though, that you can kind of smell a change in their body. Have you done a Muslim funeral, and what were the requests? How do you preserve them? You don't. You bury them the same day they die, if possible. So it's a very quick procedure for the whole service. And you basically, everything stops and you focus on that to get that all accomplished for them. Is there a lot of gay morticians? There are. I could probably name, I don't even know how many. Yes, actually, there are a lot. Yeah, Trevor, that's one of the questions I want to ask. How did they get picked to be on this calendar? How many years of schooling to become a mortician? If you do just that type of schooling, it'll be about 3 years plus an apprenticeship. So it's about 4 years of study to go into it. Why can't the blood that's drained be used in the donor field? Donated blood needs to be active and they have to treat it and use it right away. And when it's drained, it's been sitting too long. As more info becomes available, do you think you will do a video on Brian Landry or Gabby Petito? I don't see anything with their cases that I can really talk that much about. I've talked about strangulation. So I haven't seen anything with that case that's really something to address, but maybe something will come out that there is. So, all right, a couple more questions here. I heard the story of the tall guy getting his legs cut off to fit in the casket. My husband is 6'6". What happens? Keep up the good work. So we have tricks that we can do to allow for taller people to fit more comfortably in caskets. So when we embalm, we will bend the legs, bend the knee up, put like a leg block or a head block under it to create a bend to the knee. And then when you put the person in the casket, you cross their ankles, but bend the knees out. So the legs kind of are doing this, which allows for a lot more room in the casket. So there are definitely ways to allow for more space. If you're at the point that the person doesn't fit in a standard casket, you just get an oversized casket. Oversized comes longer and wider. So you just get a longer casket. Couple more question here. Why do they only show the top half of the casket and not the bottom? The bottom half isn't finished in a half couch. So there are areas that have full couch caskets. The whole thing is open. Do all metal caskets have a sacrificial anode on the bottom? I don't know that they all do, no. So that's something, I don't know if David, I can't remember if you're who emailed me about that. So it's on my list to do a video about. I just need to look into it. Do the faces of the dead ever appear in thought when you least expect it? I can't say that they do. I know they go through rigor, but does it break later or does the body limber up? The body does limber up on its own when rigor goes away, because that's the muscles are breaking down enough that they don't have that rigidity to them anymore. However, you can break up rigor when you go to embalm and stuff. You want the body to be pliable. So you have to break up the rigor. You're not breaking anything. You're not like breaking bones or anything. Think of it, I think of a good analogy. But you're essentially, well, think of like bubble wrap. This is not a great analogy, but I just broke down a bunch of boxes and had bubble wrap. Bubble wrap. It's a bit firmer when the air pockets are in there. But if you break all of that bubble or all those bubbles, it's a lot looser and easier to move. Same thing when you pop these kind of pockets of pent up proteins and things in the muscles, it relaxes out. So that's kind of what you're doing. Worst analogy ever, probably. Worst. Don't ever use that if you're in mortuary school. First thing that popped in my mind, though. Sometimes my analogies work good and sometimes they don't. Have you ever had a paranormal experience? Yes. Go check out my video on my paranormal experience. My friend who was 350 pounds was laying higher in the top part and the bottom of his casket was low. Is this normal for larger people? Yes. So when someone's larger, typically if you laid them flat, their abdomen is up higher than their head. So this plane, that abdomen is creating all this pressure. Every gas that's built up, you got gravity pushing down and it's all going to go down and out the head or down and out the lower end. So you want to get that head above where the gas and pressure could be. When you bring that head up, you're not going to get as much purge. You're not going to get all of it. And still darkening. Even after embalming, that person's head, if they're lower than the abdomen, could still keep darkening up. So you want to get their head up above the abdomen. My husband passed and I had him cremated. Can I still bury him? Yes, of course. You can. Of course. Okay, one more question. Oh, hi, bro, dude. That's way too big of a question right now. But what has COVID-19 taught you about our society, the funeral industry, and people and their mentality around death? Oh my gosh, I feel like I've got a lot of thoughts on that. But one thing I think is that people don't like being told no. They don't like when they're being controlled. They don't like when they're told that they can't have something. Because everyone thought, okay, well, everybody's been told they can't do something. So they're kind of swinging towards maybe a direct cremation or no services. So now that people see they can do this, they're not going to do services again. Wrong. Swinging the other way. We want services. We want to have this. We want to do that. We want to be there. People are wanting to be part of things more because when that opportunity was taken away from them, they realized how much they wanted and needed it. So they're swinging back the other way. So I think that's been a really cool thing to see happen. All right. I said one more question, so I'm going to wind down. Thank you guys for joining. I'm glad I remembered I wanted to go live tonight. I was almost going to post it earlier today too, that I was going live. My 1000th post is coming up on Instagram in the next day or two, which is crazy. I don't know. I like milestones. I'm a milestone liker. I'm almost to 95,000 subs, which is crazy too. That's a crazy big milestone. So make sure you subscribe, share a video, check out social media. If you're not following me on social media, I will not accept friend requests on my personal pages, but Kari the Mortician, follow it all day long, and check out, and I'll keep posting new content there and new tips and things about my life and things that go on and everything. So I'll see you guys soon. See you on the next video. Bye.